The first minute. The master of the universe, the living Yangwa Maitreya Buddha. The living Maitreya Buddha, the master of the universe, created Yangwa world with the bright light. How is that so? Gold is gold from the first, and diamond is diamond from the first. Yangwa Maitreya Buddha enlightened the dharma of all things Gong thought, and had the bright light before he came to this world. The second minute. Dead persimmon trees don't bloom. The reason why the living Yangwa Maitreya Buddha came to this Saba world with the bright light is to save the sentient beings that were not saved by Sakyamuni Buddha and those who are still trapped in stupid Buddhism. How is that so? Just as dead persimmon trees do not bloom and do not bear fruit, the Buddhism of the Sakyamuni, who died thousands of years ago, can't do the interdependent arising with the sentient beings in this world. So, even if you pray earnestly, your vows will not come true. The third minute. Enlighten the true reality of all phenomena. Gong thought. Now the world of Saba has many sentient beings wandering in the dark because of wrongful Buddhism. How is that so? Sakyamuni's dharma, all dharmas lack self-nature, absence of form of all phenomena. Timeless void of nirvana is the truth, is an incorrect teaching in this modern era, which is full of civilization and science. How is that so? The teaching of Sakyamuni, that the existence of sentient beings itself is anguish, impermanence, and non-self. So the sentient beings need to enter into nirvana, is an incorrect teaching to the people of this world who seek happiness. So the interdependent arising and the Gong thought is the real state of all elements. The fourth minute. The right view of the Gong thought. The Gong thought by the interdependent arising, which was enlightened by the living Yangwa Maitreya Buddha, is the highest dharma that we can't give its name. How is that so? The nature of the universe, the Gong thought, refers to the creation of something new, based on the interdependent arising. Therefore, it must be visible, the shape must be the same. And only when it is alive can the interdependent arising occur. Things that are invisible and things different in shape, and those that are already dead can't be the Gong thought because there is no interdependent arising. The fifth minute. Gong thought is the nature of the universe. When the people of this world are enlightened with the interdependent arising and the Gong thought, the disaster will be extinguished every day, and the family will be full of blessings. How is that so? Gong thought is the nature of the universe. If you enlighten it properly, the foolishness of the sentient beings will disappear and wisdom will rise. The reason why sentient beings have wandered in the dark so far is that they have learned and followed the unenlightened dharma of Sakyamuni. How is that so? The interdependent arising doesn't happen with the dead. The dharma of Sakyamuni, who died thousands of years ago, have already disappeared. The sentient beings who believed and followed that Buddhism died and disappeared without reincarnation. The sixth minute. The sun is the Gong thought of all things. The sun is the most precious thing in the Saba world, where many sentient beings live. How is that so? All living beings born from wombs, eggs, humidity or plants like flowers and trees, with or without form, will disappear in one moment, and nothing will be left on earth if there is no sun. Therefore, the supreme light in the world is the bright light from the sun in the sky. Have you ever seen the sun disappear on this earth? The sun never disappears, so it's a gong thought. This should be correctly understood and enlightened by sentient beings. The 7th minute. Reincarnation by the bright light. Hundreds of billions of sentient beings are dying every day in the Seba world. But not a human being is reincarnated. And they are floating outside the universe. In order to rescue them and reincarnate them into the Seba world, they must receive the precepts with the bright light brought by the living Yangwa Maitreya Bodha, which is like the light of the sun. How is that so? Just as everything can live only when it is under the light of the sun. Sentient beings can be reincarnated only if they receive the bright light. The 8th minute. The enlightened Bodha has bright light. The Bodha, who was enlightened from the beginning, has the bright light coming from his body. A sentient being without the bright light can never become a Buddha. How is that so? Since Sakyamuni was unenlightened and had no bright light, he has not been able to save a single human since thousands of years ago. Bodhisattvas were also unenlightened. They also had no bright light. So they couldn't even save a single human since thousands of years ago. So far, people who have received precepts by Sakyamuni or all the bodhisattvas couldn't come back because they couldn't receive the precepts with the bright light, and their souls all disappeared. The 9th minute. The precepts of the living Yangwa Maitreya Bodha. The gong thought is the highest dharma until the end of the earth, just like the sun in the sky. How is that so? Just as everything disappears in an instant. Without the sun, gong thought is truly magnificent. How is that so? This is because just as the sentient beings can't receive the light from the sun after death, human beings also can't receive the bright light after death. The 10th minute. You have to receive the precepts to be reincarnated. If a human being receives the precepts with the bright light by the living Yangwa Maitreya Bodha, when he or she is alive, that person will go to the Yangwa world, Longhashiji'a world, without death, made up of the light of great Yangwa Maitreya Buddha as a Buddha after death, or will be reincarnated. How is that so? The living Yangwa Maitreya Buddha enlightened the highest gong thought and had the bright light before he came to the Seba world. If a human being receives the precepts with the bright light when he or she is alive, that person will go to the Yangwa world, Longhashiji'a world, without death, made up of the light of great Yangwa Maitreya Buddha, or be reincarnated. But for the human being who hasn't received the precepts by the living Yangwa Maitreya Buddha when he or she is alive, the body and soul will be extinguished, so that human being cannot be reincarnated. The 11th minute. The great assembly have their hands together. If you observe and keep well the enlightened gong thought of the living Yangwa Maitreya Buddha until the end of the sun and the moon, you will be easily able to achieve the Buddhahood. Hence, Taemyong Haiwu answered, joining her hands, Holy living Yangwa Maitreya Buddha, I will keep that in mind until the end of the sun, the end of the moon, and the end of the universe.